I want to once again thank you all for attending the Boundary Systems Wednesday webinar. This one, of course, is featuring the Windchill parts classification, where we can go in and talk about how to classify our parts inside of Windchill to make them easier to find and easier to go through and categorize them. Okay. So the objective of this, of course, is to go through, review, and demonstrate Windchill parts classification. So the agenda of it is simply to go through a quick introduction of boundary systems and an overview of myself. Then we'll go through and do an overview, just general discussion on part classification, go through a demonstration, and then after that, a Q&A session. In your GoToMeeting session on the right side, there is an area in there for questions. So at the end of the presentation, if there are any questions, you can enter them into there because everybody is muted. So all the questions can be entered into there and I can answer them as they come in. All right, so first about me. My name is Michael Wimberly once again. I'm a senior technical specialist at Boundary Systems. I've been working with PTC products for a little bit over 20 years now. I'm a certified trainer in Creo and Windchill classes, as well as a certified implementation specialist for Windchill. Boundary Systems as a whole, we have partners including PTC, Solid Thinking, and eTraj. We've been number 16 in the fastest private companies in the greater Cleveland area. Some of our capabilities, of course, include product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design consulting, simulation, and product development. So those are some of our core capabilities within the company itself. Some of the general awards that we've received, Inc. 5000, we've been in the Inc. 5000 for I think the last 4 or 5 years now. Same thing with the Weatherhead 500. I'm sorry, Weatherhead 100, which is basically Northeast Ohio's fastest growing companies. We've been in that for the past, I think, 4 years as well. Some of our major accreditations, of course, are Windchill certified implementers. We are a PTC preferred service provider, and we also are a certified training partner. So we actually have a training center in our Cleveland office, which is our headquarters. But we also can come on site to do training. We can bring our laptops. We can use your computers, whatever needs to happen to make that the training classes run. But yeah, so we are a certified training partner to PTC as well, so we can run pretty much all the classes. And then once again, some solutions that we offer are, of course, the PTC suite of solutions. We have Solid Thinking eTraj, which will allow us to interact with some of the applications inside of Windchill. One of the things that we do is when we do some migrations, we go in and use some of that as well. And then Noesis, we've used that as well, or we have that capability as well. All right, so just general contact information for myself. Once again, any technical questions, you can address them to me. Michael Wimberly. My phone number is 513-415-0747. That is a Cincinnati number. I am actually stationed out of Cincinnati. Once again, the headquarters of Boundary Systems, although is in Cleveland. And then also for any sales-related questions, you can contact Carrie Dillon, and her number and email address are listed there as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's think a little bit. So have you ever had a hard time finding something? Whatever it may be, and I've actually just used the term. When somebody asks you, hey, can you find something, or do you know where this is? A lot of times we use this new element called an element. It's simply the element of confusion. We don't know immediately where something is. So if I tell you, hey, go find something for me, or do you remember what the specs are for this, or do you know where you put the wrench that we use to, put the tires on the bike? Your first reaction is because once again, that's not something that you know immediately. So once again, our element of confusion. So if I did ask you to find me a 3/4 inch socket cap screw in the garage, you probably say no problem until you see the garage. Now there's an issue because that garage doesn't really have any organization to it, and you finding it is not going to be easy, especially if this is not your garage. If it's your garage, you know how we are with our stuff. Our mess is our mess, so it's an organized mess to us. So somewhere somebody knows exactly where their hardware is in that garage. Me, if that was my friend's garage, no idea where to start. So if a garage looked more organized, it'll be easier to go in and find stuff. Now, we're not saying fully organized. We're simply saying that maybe, okay, we can look at this garage and we can see, okay, right over there at the bench, that's probably where we're going to go in and find the hardware. So is it going to be somewhere very easy to find as far as on the bench? No, but at least we have a starting point. So we know that it's somewhere within that area that we can go in and find it. So, excuse me, with either one of those solutions, what will be the easiest way or the quickest way to go in and resolve that? We can go through, look through everything, go in and try to find that screw. Now, for this, there's multiple choices that I'm going to give you. You can go to Lowe's and buy the screw. You can go to Home Depot and find the screw. You can go to Ace Hardware. You can even go to your local True Value store and go find it. Because 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, it's easier to go to the hardware store, buy the hardware again than to waste all the time in that garage, either one of them trying to find that hardware. So it's much easier to go through and do it. But when you do that, now we're going in and we're spending more money that we unnecessarily don't have to spend because we know we have it, we just don't know where it is. If our garage was more organized, this is a little bit easier to go and find something. As you can see, we have little tubs of storage units. The tubs have labels on them. It's easier to go through and find them. That's the overall garage. We can even come down a little bit further into our little tool area where it's organized a little bit better. But we were looking specifically for hardware. We're looking for screws. So even if we had something like this, then it'd be very easy to go through and find that. So what we're looking at is if we go into our garage, if our garage is organized here, we can go in and say, okay, it's organized. From there, I need to go into this area. From this area, I can now go in and open up that to go in and find the actual hardware that I'm looking for. So if things were organized and made logical sense as to where to go in and find them, that will make it a lot easier to do it. Windchill is like our garage. How many of us have created a piece of hardware, and I'm not even going to say Windchill, just our engineering environment, whether you have Windchill or not. Our engineering environment is like that garage. How many of us have recreated a piece of hardware because we couldn't find it in a reasonable amount of time? See, I can actually see through my computer, so I can see all you all nodding your head up and down because I know we've all done it. It's the same part that we know is somewhere else, but we're going to give it a different part number. It's going to be listed differently in ERP. We're probably going to buy it from a different vendor, which means now we're buying this socket head cap screw from, vendor A. We're buying that same socket head cap screw from vendor B, where if we went in and actually had the organization that we needed, we would go in and see, okay, we can now get a better bulk rate from this vendor because we're now ordering this same screw from that same vendor. And then, of course, on the shop floor, it more than likely is going to be in a different bin because now there are 2 different part numbers and we're keeping those things separate. And then the shop floor guys are looking at us as well. Why do we have these 2 different bins when they're the exact same screw? So why did we do it? Well, first, we didn't know the part number. So we couldn't even find the part number. We didn't know what part number to go in and find. So we couldn't even search for it inside the database. We didn't know where to start looking, even if we were going to browse. Is this screw in a product? Is this screw in a library? No idea where to start. And we didn't know how the description was set up. So we could have searched on the description. Is it labeled socket head cap screw, basically then SHCS? Or is it labeled socket head cap screw? Or is it screw dash socket head? On and on and on and on. There's many different ways that thing can actually be labeled inside of our system. But once again, without us knowing how to do it or how it was labeled, we didn't know where to start. Once again, and we know that everybody has a different way of going in and doing things. So we may not have a standard company-wise as far as naming convention. So we could end up naming it 5 different ways, but it's all naming the same part. Basically, in other words, we didn't know the right stuff about it to find it. That's where now part classification comes in, because now we're able to go through and organize these things so we know exactly what we're looking for. It takes a lot less effort to go through and find the information that we need. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and jump into our demonstration. So right now, this is our garage. So when you open up Windchill, you have basically access to everything inside the database. But our Windchill is actually organized for us in some manners. So if we go over to our browse, we have the categories. So we have products and we have libraries. So we do have some organization there that we can go through and use. So we can go in and find things inside of a product. We can go and find things inside of a library. So, but from there, just like when we looked at the shelving units, we have the shelving units, then we have the different bins. So in the different bins, that kind of correlates to our different folders. So now we're going to organize those things from our classified. In this library that we're in, which happens to be our classified parts, we can now organize them into subfolders. But once again, we kind of equate that to bins inside of our garage, storage bins. But then when you open up the bin, then you have the information. Now that bin is basically as deep as the organization as we're going to go in and go. We're just going to go in and now start dumping things in there based on the item being an electrical bin, or we're going to go in and have a general bin where we're just going to go in and put in miscellaneous items, nothing really organized inside of it. Or of course we have a mechanical bin where we can go through and find things. So we're still going in and we're organizing things, but there's still a level of organization that we can go in and do. Because as we can see here, looking at the mechanical, yeah, we have a name and we have a number. And a lot of times when we're actually going in and creating our parts, our part numbering, especially for our hardware, doesn't necessarily make any logical sense where we're going in and saying, okay, this is a descriptor part of our part number. If you look here, we're looking at 10031, 10032, 33, 34, so on and so forth. Basically, it's like pulling part numbers off an Excel spreadsheet. And I know everybody has done that before, is you have a part number sheet on a shared drive somewhere where we've gone through and actually pulled a part number or a list of part numbers that we're going to go through and create for our hardware. So we've done that over and over again. So our part numbers are basically not logical part numbers. And then we did give it a name. So we named this 0.25 narrow. 0.25 narrow what? 0.25 regular, 0.25 wide. So on and so forth. So we have different categories, we have different descriptors, but we're not exactly sure what we're actually going in and looking at. Now, the thing that we've done is we've added that next level of organization to these items. What we've done is we've gone through and set up classifications. So in our search drop-down menu, there's an option in here for classification search. What we're able to do now is, because we've gone through and set up our classifications inside of our Windchill, we now have gone through and set up, and these are just two general classifications. We can set up as many of those as we want to, but we set up electronic parts and we set up mechanical parts. Underneath there, you can see that we actually have subtopics as well. So once again, we're breaking it down further and further. So under electronic parts, we have electrical protection devices. You have cables, switches, electrical outlets. Under mechanical parts, we have fasteners, bearings, additional fasteners, and then wiring. So if we go into the mechanical area, I'll just select mechanical parts, and then we can see the breakdown from there. So once again, we have the bearings, we have a fastener that's basically a bolt, and then we have fasteners over here, which is washers and bolts. If we go over here in fasteners, we now once again can go into those subcategories. Now underneath washers, you see that we have round washers and shape washers. And then we can go to washers in general, or we can go directly into round washers. Now, it tells us there's 194 of those. We can come over here and filter that a little bit, but right now we're just going to go ahead and do a view all. And what we're going to do is simply view all of those washers that are listed. Now, as you can see inside of here, we have additional information. So we have the name. all of our state, all our general information, name and number still there. But now we also have a supplier column. We have, has it obtained the safety standard, outside diameter, inside diameter, the weight, the application for it. Where is it? This one is an automotive one. Does it have a classification where, it's for aerospace? Do we have those? And then we have thicknesses. Now, this is actually in meters currently. That can actually be tweaked to go through and actually update that. But as you can see, we still have quite a bit of information in here that we can go in and look at. Now, what we may want to go in and do is we might go through and filter this down. So over here, we're just going to go in and basically filter down our search. So for instance, I'm looking for an inside diameter of 5 millimeters. So I'm going to type in millimeters because it's going to convert that. That's basically what it's doing for our units. It's going to go in and convert that. And it goes in and now it shows me all of the items that have a 5 millimeter diameter, inside diameter for that washer. So that narrows it down quite a bit that we can go through and look at. And then from here, okay, I want to go in and find this number 10. And then I can go in and look at the information from that. So it's a way of going in and now, once again, adding additional classifications to our models. I'm going to go back. And then from here, I'm going to go all the way back to the start. And we can go into electronic parts. And then from here, we can go into cables. And now we'll list all the different type of cables. So you can see over here, I have everything listed. There's our part numbers. Once again, not really making any logical sense as far as what the naming convention may be. And we've also gone in and shown the gauge. So we just know this is 6 gauge, 4 gauge, but we don't know anything else about it. Well, one of the things that we can do with our classification is give that a general description. So we can go through and say, okay, this is copper wire, it's waterproof, and the coating of it is yellow, or the sleeve is yellow. Same thing, this is copper wire, the sleeve is orange, and this is waterproof. These don't have any. We can go through and update those to go in and give them additional information, so on and so forth. So we can see that those things are actually available for us to go through and sort by. Now, the thing that's very beneficial with this is that if I come back over here to my search area, and in my keyword search, if I type in, I'm going to go in and type in waterproof. That information that I've entered in over here is also searchable. So it goes in and now shows me all of the wires or everything categorized that is actually waterproof. For us, it just happens to be wires. There could be other items that we're searching by as well. But it goes in and shows us all the information that has waterproof as part of the classification of that item. Same thing, if we want to go through and find the orange. You can type that in, and it goes in and finds that wire, 4 gauge wire, that basically has the orange sleeve on it. So we can go in and actually use all this information to go through and set up our models. Now, how do we do that? Glad you asked. So I'm going to go right into my classification. And I'm going to go, I'll leave it at mechanical. And inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and just start a part. Now, understand that what we're dealing with for PartsLink is for our WT part files. So all the categorizing that we're doing for this, or classification that we're doing for this, we're doing it on the WT part file. So we're actually going to go in and create a WT part file. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and specify that this is just a simple part file. I'm going to give it a part number of M1100. And then this one, I'll call it, let's call it bearing. I'll just call it bearing. Now, with this, at the very bottom, or towards the bottom, you have mechanical classification. So when we set up our WT part files, we actually added an attribute for mechanical classification. So now that becomes an option for us to be able to set for our different items when we create our WT part files. So I'm going to come over here and specify that for this one, we've gone through and set up that everything that we have under mechanical parts, we have fasteners, we have washers, we have bearings. We can go through, and right now I have it set up where we're not selecting all of the bearing options. I'm just selecting the cylindrical bearing types, but I'm going to go through and select that one and say okay. So what I basically have done is I've now given this a category that it's going to be a bearing. It's a mechanical part. It's a bearing, and the type of bearing that it is a cylindrical bearing. Now from there, I get an additional tab. But before I go to that additional tab, I also want to bring attention to something as well. We are creating our WT part files, but we also want to be able to create our CAD files with that. So instead of doing them as two separate steps, over here, I can come over here and tell it to create the CAD document as well. So now when I create them, they're actually still related to each other. So I don't have to create the WT part, then create the CAD file, and then create the relationship between the two. If I do them in the one step, then I'm going in and creating a WT part, creating the associated CAD document as well. And now I can go through and actually create the geometry in the CAD document and have it updated properly. So by doing that, I now have two additional options at the top. So I have one for my mechanical classification, and then I have another one for the actual creating of the CAD document. So I'll go ahead and select next. And then over here, I can go through and specify the weight. So if you're going in and now duplicating something from a catalog, we can go in and now pull things directly out of a catalog. So we can come over here, the load, height, the inside diameter. I'm just going to go in and give it an inside diameter of, let's call it 12 millimeters. And then an outside diameter of 36 millimeters. Now I can also come over and specify the duplication of it. Once again, these are attributes that we've gone through and defined inside of the cylindrical bearing part. So when we've gone through and specified that, when we've gone through and given it that category, we've now gone in and said these are the attributes that we want to be able to define when we're going in and creating a cylindrical bearing. So we've gone in and given ourselves that information, or the ability to enter that information. Now we can go through as well if there's something that we have to enter, like we must have, inside diameter, outside diameter. We can calculate those. We can select those and make those a required attribute that's filled in. So it won't allow us to go to the next page until we fill in that information. All right. So once we've gone through and given the information that we want, we go in and select next again. It now goes through and allows us to go in and specify the type of CAD document that we want to create. Of course, we're going to go in and create Creo, the actual CAD document, and we're going to go in and use our standard start template. And with that, if our part numbering was different, we can go in and use a different part number. But of course, ours is the same. I think I did 1100. We can always rename it. And the name of it is bearing. And once again, the revision and so on and so forth. All right, so everything is good. We can go in and finish it. And as we can see, it successfully created the part file and the CAD file. So both of those have now been created. And now I can go through and open up that CAD file inside of Creo and actually begin to manipulate that information. Now, how do we get to this information? Once again, good question. Over here in the browse area, if you have PartsLink, now PartsLink is an add-on. It's not standard with your regular Windchill installation, so you do need, this is an actual add-on. But if you do have it, you have the ability to go through into your classification administration. So underneath here is where we go through and now manage our classifications. So we can now go through and specify, okay, we have a root level. Underneath the root level, we now have our first sub-level. And now we can go through and specify the different items underneath there. So this is where we're going through and specify, okay, we have electronic parts. Underneath the electronic parts, we're also going to go in and create power converters, resistors, so on and so forth. So you can go in and nest as far down as you need to with as much detail as you want for each of those items. So once again, what we're doing is giving it a classification. Now understand, each one of these levels is searchable. So if I'm searching for a resistor, I can type in resistors, and everything that is a category resistor, I can go in and find. Same thing over here with cables. Is it a power cord? Is it a test lead? Is it a patch cord? So on and so forth. So I have all the information that I can go through and categorize them. And as you saw when I created my WT part, it just simply took me down this line. So when I went in here, I went to bearing. So I went into mechanical parts, bearing, and then underneath bearing, instead of it being a radial bearing, with it being a radial bearing, I've actually created a cylindrical bearing. So I've gone through and now specified all that information that is now, once again, categorizing my parts. So once again, with the classification, what you're doing is you're simply giving it another level of organization that you can go through and use. So once again, let's look at the garage piece again. So when we look at the garage, we had, the shelves, that was everything, where everything was set up. Then we had the tubs that had labels on them. And then inside the tubs was just the information. So we could have just poured a bunch of nuts and bolts in that tub all at one time. Well, instead of doing that, then we had smaller containers in those tubs. So let's take it and look at coffee cans, something we have laying around, coffee cans. So now instead of going in and having a tub just full of miscellaneous nuts and bolts sitting on top of each other, we've now gone through and now put, socket cap screws in one coffee can. We've gone through and put our hex nuts in another coffee can. We put our drywall screws in another coffee can. So we've gone through, we still have that tub where everything is at, but now what we've done is we've gone through and now organized it one level deeper so that we can now go through and find that information. And if we want to take it even one level deeper, we could then have even just smaller, let's look at old medicine bottles. And now we have different size socket head cap screws. So we've gone through and now thrown one additional level of organization inside of that as well. And that's exactly what we're doing here, is we're going through and we're going all the way down from the top level all the way down to the coffee can level, or even down further to where we have old medicine bottles that we've gone through and now thrown hardware in. So we've organized it even to that level as well. So different sizes, maybe in different medicine bottles. We know how we recycle stuff. Reuse, reuse, reuse. So that's basically what we're doing here with our classification information. So once again, we'll go through and manage that. And also, as I said before, what you're also doing is everything that we've set up inside of our classification, all that information is just simply attributes that we've added underneath our WT parts. So when we've gone through and defined our WT parts, we've now gone through and added additional information inside of there. And then when we've gone through and defined in our managing inside of here, we've gone through and added any additional attributes that we wanted to go through and use. Now, also remember that this works just like our regular type and attribute manager does. It will inherit the information that we put from the top level. So if we want something to be in all of the fasteners, then we put it up in the fasteners level. But then once we get down a little bit further, there may be specific attributes that we're going to go in for the nut. So we have like a head diameter, we have the weight of it, a supplier, all those things, length, catalog number. So in those information that we want that's specific to that item, we will go in and categorize that. As you can see here with a plunger, there's quite a few things that are specific to just a plunger and it's not inherited from that top level item. So once we get into the PartsLink information, then setting up those categories and setting up those fasteners and setting up the appropriate attributes to use actually becomes pretty straightforward. It does, you will take a few minutes to get this thing organized, but once you have it organized and you can go through and begin to categorize your parts, it makes it a lot easier to go through and use. All right. Any general questions on any of that? I do see that there is one question, and it says, do you have to create subtypes of WT parts to hold different attributes? The only subparts that you will create would be the are the actual subtypes would be the mechanical and the electrical. After that, everything is done inside of here. So yes. Can I show you the pull down for creating a part? Are you referring to a part just from within Windchill? So if I'm creating a part from within the browser, from a product. Well, it'll be the same for the library. So I'm just going to go into the library because the user that I'm in has that information. So for right here, and I'm assuming that you're referring to a WT part. So when you're doing that, that's just simply this icon here. So with your WT part, then inside of here, actually we're just categorizing it as a part. And then underneath the part, we've actually specified the classification. So no, let me take that back. So we're not doing a separate part file. We're actually adding a classification attribute to the part file. So no, we're not. But if we do use electrical has the classifications as well. So we are going in, once again, not adding an actual part. We're actually simply adding a classification attribute to the part file. Once again, mechanical, electrical, or just your standard one. And then once again, don't forget that if this is not just for an ERP system, you actually are creating the physical geometry. It's not a bad idea to go in here and create it from here. To go ahead and create that CAD file as you're creating your WT part file. Once again, that way they're still synced together. Now, if you have existing WT part files, so let's go just from right here. I'm just going to create just a WT part file with no classification. We'll call this one no class. Actually, let's just give it a number. 1000011. And then we'll call this no class. And at this one, I'm not going to give it a classification. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this. If I do decide that, yes, this should be classified, I can come back in here and check it out and edit it. And then I'm able to go through and set that classification later. So if you do have parts, that you want to go through and add classification to, you are able to go through and update that information. So I can then add that information to that. And then once I do give it its appropriate classification, and I'll just do this one as a round washer. Then once I do that, now I have my secondary tab to now go through and specify the appropriate information for that. And as you can see with this washer, it does have 3 required fields: a thickness, an inside diameter, and an outside diameter. Pop that back out. If I have a family table of 200 like items with WT parts, can I push bulk classification? There. I've been testing that, and I will need to officially get back with you on that one to see what's the best way of having, and I understand that because, like you said, our hardware for the most part is family table, and if they have it, each WT part, do we need to go through and do each one of them? Yeah. Let me double check that. I will put down information and question. So I have your email address. So once I look that information up, I can get back with you. If I didn't read the question properly for everybody, the question is, if I have a family table of 200 like items with WT parts, can I push bulk classification? And that I just have to verify. Like I said, I was testing that out and I'm not 100% sure how to get that. So, but I'll confirm that. All right. Are there any additional questions on any of this? Going once. Going twice. In that case, that's all, folks. So once again, here's our contact information. So if you want to get in touch with me, there's my phone number and my email address for technical questions. If you have sales questions, please feel free to contact Carrie Dillon. There's her information as well and her email address. Also, we also have a support ticketing system. So if you have a question on something, whether it's related to this or something else that you just need an answer to, we actually have a support ticketing system. And you can actually get to that ticketing system by going to support.boundarysys.com and simply opening up a ticket there. That will then go to our support team. And then one of us will get back with you actually pretty quickly because we're pretty quick on getting responses out to customers when they have questions. So it'll actually get funneled to the right person with the proper expertise in that area, and they'll get back with you with the information that you need. So once again, feel free to use that. And of course, visit our website. It's also in the process of being rebuilt as well. So the new website should be up soon. But always visit our website. We have our upcoming webinars, training information, products, things like that are on our website, and that's at boundarysys.com. So once again, I want to thank you all for attending today, and you have a great remainder of the afternoon. Thank you.